Hours after the terror attacks in Brussels, Donald Trump accepted an invitation to call into the Today Show. Hillary Clinton declined, but then changed her mind after the Trump interview. And that kicked off a fierce debate among the pundits and the candidates.
But it was what Donald Trump said about waterboarding and what else he would do that had Hillary Clinton responding, and quickly.
For Hillary Clinton, a chance to prove her national security credentials. For Donald Trump, an opportunity to seem more presidential one day after calling for controversial cuts to NATO.
Presidential candidates Donald Trump and Ted Cruz both pushing controversial plans to fight ISIS. Hillary Clinton says they're guilty of being bigots.
Gail Trotter, have the Belgian bombings, what a tragedy, pushed the media and the candidates into a more serious debate about terrorism?
I would hope that that would be the case, but I don't think so. I think anytime you have a terrorist attack in the West, we have wall-to-wall, 24/7 coverage of the attack because audiences want to know the details. They want to know what happens. But as soon as the details are released, the coverage dies down, and then the press can't really come forward with any information that the public wants. Like, they want to know, how do we defeat the bad guys? And does the press have any credible information about imminent threats, and the media doesn't come up with that. So then we don't get into the bigger debate about the how do we handle this.
Well, at least until we all got diverted into the stuff we were talking about in the first segment, this was the dominant story for reporters covering the campaign, was it not?
Yeah, it was. And I think not only is it something we covered in terms of the event itself, but also in terms of what the candidates were saying about it. But I think it also changed the lens through which we viewed what they were saying about it. So, for instance, before the attacks, Donald Trump had unveiled 5 foreign policy advisors who were not particularly well known in the foreign policy community. He'd made his comments about maybe...
Some of them are.
Some, but about getting out of NATO, and then those...
Or at least adjusting the U.S. role in NATO.
Yes, adjusting. Yeah. And then those comments are sort of viewed through a different lens after the attacks. And that interview you mentioned, the very long 100 minutes with the New York Times on foreign policy, I think, you know, we may have talked about other things, but I do think it led our homepage. It's on our front page.
Right.
I think people are interested in reading that, of this man could be commander-in-chief.
Are we in a predictable post-attack environment now where conservative pundits are slamming Hillary Clinton on terror and liberal pundits are denouncing Trump and Cruz?
We are, and it's going to continue this way until this election's over, and I fear it's going to continue this way even after the new president is sworn in, because the building behind us is so completely polarized to the point where there's no working with anybody anymore. You know, I remember being here on 9/11. I don't remember this kind of coverage after 9/11 where people were turning on each other, immediately turning on the president, turning on Congress, assigning blame. I fear this is the new normal for us, not just in the press and not just in politics, but really among the public at large. Yeah, that was a time when the country did come together. Right. All right, so Ashley, do you think the media have overplayed this story? Conservative criticism, let's put up some pictures here, that President Obama stayed in Cuba after the Brussels bombings, didn't cut short his trip, and went to a baseball game. The optics were not great.
Yeah, you know, the president got a lot of criticism in conservative media for this. His response was that, you know, the goal of terrorism is sort of to disrupt our ordinary lives, and he was not going to disrupt his life. It didn't seem to me like a huge story, but it was certainly something where you had kind of that polarizing commentary, and you could kind of think what conservatives are going to say versus what liberals are going to say. And
Gail, going on to Argentina and then dancing the tango reluctantly with that woman, you also thought that was, is that a legitimate controversy?
Yes, definitely. And definitely the conservative media covered it, but I saw it picked up by the mainstream media as well, because certainly those pictures of him with the Argentinian tango dancer were a very dramatic contrast to the people bleeding in the streets of Brussels.
To me, the misstep was so briefly addressing the Belgian bombings and then going back to his prepared remarks, leaving aside the fact that these are the things you do when you visit these other countries. All right, Gail Trotter, Ashley Parker, Julie Roginski, thanks very much for joining us.